statistical analysis. In particular, we'll be looking at rating scales. The learning outcomes associated with this lesson. We will know how to evaluate Likert scales. We will explain how statistics are used to help determine how good the measures are that have been developed. And we will look a little bit and analyze the statistics that are used to determine the goodness of fit of items in a survey. First, we'll look at the Likert, often called Likert as well, but I prefer Likert, rating scales. These scales are ones you see quite frequently you see statements or questions and you write your agreement with that statement from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So here they're looking at attitudes to shopping and trying to determine why people save money or why they may choose to shop at a certain store. We need to make sure that the measures that we use, the items we use, are good, that they measure what they intended to measure. So the concept should actually measure the relevant components of the variable we're looking at. So perhaps we're looking at KSU parking. In that case, we need to make sure that we get perceptions of undergrad and graduate students, students who come during the day and those who come at night, those who come on the weekend, and those who are hybrid or online learners. Whichever option we choose, we need to make sure we measure what we intended to measure. So if we ask students about parking, we want to make sure we don't mix in feed perception as well, or perception of campus housing, or perception of athletics. We want to ask them just questions about parking. Are the fees for parking too high? Are the alternatives for parking appropriate for commuting students? Are they appropriate for those students who live on campus? Are they appropriate for graduate, for undergraduate? So we need to make sure we have all the components that are relevant, but not including components that are not relevant or that may confuse the issue. Next, we need to analyze the items that we might have used to measure KSU parking. Do the items in an instrument belong there or not? One statistic that will help you determine that is Cronbach's alpha. It will analyze the 6 or 7 questions we ask about parking. If they are truly measuring the same thing, they should be related to each other. And Cronbach's alpha gives you a measure, a number that tells you if they are truly related to each other. Typically, a value of 0.7 or higher is considered a good Cronbach's alpha score and indicates that the items are likely to be measuring one thing. You also need to make sure that reliability is present. So your items need to consistently measure the variable or variables that they are trying to measure, the concepts you hope to gather information and learn more about. You also want to make sure that you have validity present. So you want to make sure that the instrument that you've developed measures what it's intended to measure, and others in the field would use a similar method of measuring the item. Finally, items in a questionnaire should hang together. Those items that measure the same thing are highly intercorrelated to each other and thus have high Cronbach's alpha scores, indicating they're probably measuring one concept. So you look for Cronbach's alpha scores of 0.7 or higher. Here's an example of items that you might be using to try to measure the concepts you see here. First, you might ask individual related characteristics, such as your personality. You may say, I am anxious today. I am restless. I am tired. I am overwhelmed. I am depressed. You may gather information on their feelings towards technology. You may ask, when my technology breaks down, I do not want to fix it. You may ask them, how likely are you to try to fix a computer problem on your own? You may ask them, how often do you use Geek Squad or any other service company to fix your computer? You may want to learn more about their learning style. Are they visual learners? Do they do better when they hear? Do they do better when they see it? Do they do better when they have tactile interactions or they touch it? And you may want to know other decision-making factors that are relevant to learning in terms of being able to learn in an e-learning environment. So perhaps do you have the time to spend that's necessary to succeed in the course? Do you have the funding available to purchase all the required materials, etc.? Perhaps you want to know about the business-related characteristics as well. What are the general business characteristics of this person in terms do they get projects completed early or on time, like to manage projects, like to be a follower, what they plan to do in the future. If they plan to go to grad school, they might be more motivated to do well in this class. What e-learning introduction and support measures they have in the company. If they've used them in the company or used them in education before, they may be more likely to accept e-learning in an organization. And you might want to look at the innovation-related characteristics. Is there a relative advantage to being able to use e-learning that we have in the company? Does it give us an advantage over competitors? Is it compatible with our company culture? And are we given time to do the e-learning courses? How complex is it? Can I sit down and do one of these e-learning activities in 30 minutes, or do I have to commit a day or two? So you could look at individual related characteristics, business related characteristics, and innovation related characteristics in order to predict how accepting of e-learning the people who are going to use it might be. You might also want to say, not only do I want to use our current system, but I'm willing to use new systems in the future too. That might be how you gauge their interest and acceptance in e-learning. And this is just one very simple example, but you can see all the components even that go in a simple example with 3 variables and a dependent variable of the acceptance of e-learning. To summarize, we looked at different rating scales that you might use. The most common one is probably the Likert. It's sometimes called the Likert scale. Both are acceptable, but they're an effective way to gather information from a large number of people quickly and in a manner that's not in a manner that's not expensive. However, self-reports have inherent limitations. People often behave as they think you want them to behave. The testing conditions can influence, so if they've had a bad day because of traffic and rain that day, they may give you different answers than if they've had a good day. They may be mad at the teacher, so they give what they think are bad answers. Or maybe they don't know the answer, but they're embarrassed to say, so they just choose one. With the surveys, the strongly agree to strongly disagree Likert scales, you do lose the possible rich data that you could gather in interviews or one-on-one follow-ups with employees. We did take a look at how statistics can help us determine if our data fits the model. Usually a statistical significance level is set at 0.05, which means you are 95% confident in your work. However, even if you're 95% confident, you're still wrong 5% of the time. So you need to keep that in mind, and your bosses should keep it in mind. Finally, you should check validity, reliability, and Cronbach's alpha. And then, based on all of this together and the rating scale that you've evaluated, make an argument for your assertions.